Hello, my name's Les Critchlow and I was a Staff Sergeant in the UK Armed Forces, and I served 26 years on armoured vehicles from tanks to reconnaissance vehicles. My main role was Recce Troop Sergeant during the Gulf War, and I was also a squadron gunnery instructor on all equipment from 30mm up to Challenger vehicles. What I'm going to do now is do a walk-through, talk-through with you on the CVR Combat Vehicle Reconnaissance Track Vehicles, which we've got here in the arena. This family was introduced to the British Army in the early 1970s, and it was the start of the family of CVRTs, which went from the Scorpion, which carried a 76mm gun, all the way through to the last variant, which was the Striker missile carrying vehicle, basically, which fired swing-fire anti-tank guided missiles. The first vehicle is the first one which was introduced into the British Army, which is the Scorpion, which is behind me now. The vehicle was introduced to replace the old reconnaissance vehicle, which was a Saladin. The two of them have one thing in common, which uses the same cannon, the 76mm gun. Difference being is that this is all aluminium armour. It has a 4.2 Jaguar J60 engine in it. That, combined with its light weight, gives it a high top speed, which is ideal for a recce vehicle, because you want to get in there, get the information and get out fast. This provides you that platform. Basically all the series of vehicles normally have a three-man crew. This one has the driver at the front on the right-hand side, as we're looking at it. Top of the side turret on the right-hand side is the commander's position, left-hand side is the gunner's position. You'll notice to the left-hand side of the gun, there's a bustle with a door on it. That is the gunner's image intensifying sight for shooting over night time. Unfortunately, this was introduced in the beginning of the 70s, and the technology wasn't available at the time to transpose that over to the commander's sight. So the commander was firing blind over night time and just completely relying on the gunner through his sight. This is the later version of the Scorpion, which went through a lot of transformations. If you have a look at this shoulder here all the way around the vehicle, the first ones what came out had flotation columns fitted to them so they could swim them. We tried it. We was one of the first regiments to get them in BAO when they came out in 1973, and we used to take them down to the River Weser once a year to swim them. They didn't swim. We always used to get him picked up from Panic Beach, which was about a mile down the river, unfortunately. They used to have a simple type of propeller system fitted to the driving sprockets, but they never worked. It just didn't produce enough paddle power to keep the vehicle going. So later on in life, they decided pointless having the wading screens on them, take them off. That gave us the added advantage then that we could put wide bins, like the back one down there, for extra stowage. This bin is extra stowage which we fitted when we deployed to the Gulf, and it's half a bin from a chieftain. That gives us extra stowage. We added turret bins on, because when they first came out they just had bags on them for stowage, which wasn't that good. But it's all fitted. They're fitted with smoke grenade discharges. These are the early type, which is a row of 3. The later types had a split bank of 4 smoke grenade discharges, and that's one way you can recognise an early mark to a later mark, just by looking at those. We've got the exhaust coming out of the engine here, all the way down to the back. It's got the cage round it as a safety precaution, because you don't want to start touching a hot exhaust when you're climbing up on the vehicle. Black rat, which is on this vehicle, which is one which was in my troop in the Gulf, denotes that it was serving with 4 Brigade, which was known as the Black Rats. The other brigade at the time was the Red Rats, which was 7 Brigade. Coming around the back, we've got another stowage bin extra fitted to it, which is again from a chieftain tank. That tank has provided us with some good stowage. On the back, we've got a tail end bin. Now, when the Scorpions first came out, they never had this bin on it, and it was actually a chap out of our regiment called Alan Smith, who one exercise decided, I'll jury rig a bin on the back to see how that worked. It worked. The MOD picked up on it and started designing purpose-fit bins, which is this. So Alan, you should have got the royalties for that, right? On the back, we've got a turret bin. Now in this bin, the earlier models, and I'll show you one when we go around the corner, had a square bin. This has got a taper on the top, and it is actually longer as well. That was to facilitate the stowage of the separated thermal imaging system called OTIS, Observation Thermal Imaging System site, excuse me, which we was given later on, which was excellent. It was first generation thermal imaging, which give you a white on red display when you was looking through it. It could either be dismounted on the ground or on top, which I'll show you in a short while. The commander's site has a shroud fitted round it, and on top it has a circular dish. That's where the OTIS site fitted for the commander. He used to sit it on there for a silent observation post, screw it in, switch it on and observe from the top of the vehicle. If we wanted to remote it out, we'd just dismount it, send one of the lads out to a safe place, ground mount it and does his observation from there, so the vehicles are out of sight and in cover. So that bin was specifically designed for that site. What we actually did in the Gulf was, because we had so much equipment to carry, there's different compartments in this bin to facilitate the fitting of different parts of the OTIS. We ripped the partitions out so it gives us extra space so that we could put extra stowage in it. Within the troop, we had 2 OTISes. The troop consisted of 8 Scorpions, and that was split into a half troop of 4 Scorpions each. Each half troop only had 1 OTIS between them, so we was relying on 1 vehicle out of each half troop to do night cover. If we come round the back here, we can see this. It's actually a fiberglass breathing tube for the NBC system, which is a nuclear, biological and chemical weapon filtration system, which is built into the back of the hull here. Originally it used to be a metal circular pipe with a collar on it, and you just have to split the collar so that you could unbolt the back door for the NBC system and drop it down. Again, as time progressed, they seen that was a little bit cumbersome, so they come up with a fiberglass fully fitted one so that you could drop the door without having to split it. We've got extra stowage round here for the water cans. Another modification when we got rid of the wading screen was the extra wide bin, which gives us more storage, because when they did first come out there was very little stowage on these, unfortunately. Again, the same turret bin. Again, another Chieftain turret bin, and I don't know whether you can see it from here, but if you look from there you can see just a little round dish on the top of the commander's site there. That's where the OTIS site would be placed and screwed into position. This caricature Rogue Rupert was actually the troop leader's vehicle, call sign 2-1, and the call sign system went, the half troop was 2-1, his Oppo was 2-1 Alpha, then my half was, I was 2-2, my Oppo was 2-2 Alpha, then 2-3 was another vehicle for the troop leader's side, and it used to work that anything was an odd number was the troop leader's troop, anything with an even number was my troop. So this was a troop leader's. Now the reason it's called Rogue Rupert is because whatever squadron you're in, and in the regiments we had 4 squadrons, A, B, C and D, all the vehicles began with a letter pertaining to that squadron. Ours was Recce Troop, so it started with a letter R, and Rogue Rupert was just a nickname what we used to give to young new officers. We used to call them Rogue Ruperts because they didn't have a clue really when they joined. So he picked the name Rogue Rupert, bless him. Essential to the vehicle, the fire extinguisher, the internal fire extinguisher for the engine. It's only a one-shot system on this, and if you can imagine with it being a petrol engine, you needed something. It feeds in through and it goes round in a loop and around the top of the engine. Now what you used to have to do with that is push that collar back and squeeze it, and hopefully that would put any fire out. As I said, it's a one-shot system. We've never ever had to use it, and I've never seen anybody have to use that, so it was good. The tracks, it's a 5-road wheel system. Later models, different versions of it, updated ones, like the Stormer or the Striker was a stretch hull, and that had 6-road wheels. The problem what we found with these in the Gulf, working alongside Challenger, was that we couldn't keep up with the Challengers. The Challenger was so fast, and these are quite temperamental on how you drive them. You must have to drive them to suit the vehicle, not the terrain. It's a torsion bar suspension system. Challenger was a hydrogas suspension system, which gives you such a perfect ride. This is rockety. It's like going on a seasick ride. So we had problems keeping up with them. With Chieftain, we had no problems. We could overtake the Chieftains, but unfortunately, we couldn't do it with these. If you remember, when we just shown you the back bin on that first Scorpion, and I said the original one was slightly different. That's the original one. You can see the major difference there. That is a square bin, and it's shorter. so you didn't have as much stowage on it. But then again, that wasn't designed for a night sight as that one was. But basically, that's the only difference between that Scorpion and the Scorpion we've just looked at. What we'll have a look at now is the next in the series, which was introduced in the British Armour, which is the Scimitar. And I'll then tell you about the difference between the two's roles, because they both have different guns and they both have different roles. The second vehicle which was introduced for the CVR series is this one behind me now, which is called the Scimitar. All this series, CVRT, Combat Vehicle Reconnaissance Tracked, start with the letter S. So we've got Scorpion, now we've got Scimitar. The main difference you will notice straight away is the main armament on it. This one is a 30mm Radon cannon. It operates with two clips of 3 rounds apiece. So in one engagement it can fire 6 rounds in one go and rapid firing. It's a very simple gun which, if it malfunctions, can be stripped and rectified while still in the turret. You don't have to get outside to rectify anything about it at all, so you're still under cover. That's the only difference between it, apart from the image intensifying cover, which you can see is different than the Scorpion. That being sort of like the updated version, because this came out second. Hull and drive wise, totally no different. Same hull, same engine, same running gear, no difference at all. This one, however, is a later model, which is what they call, it's been updated to a diesel engine, this one. And you can tell on this one by this cover here, which is an air intake for it. The other ones, the petrol ones, don't have that, and you can tell the difference when the engine starts up. It has a diesel sound. But apart from that, that's the only difference between the Scimitar and the Scorpion. In regards to the roles, when we first got them, there was 2 regiments with Scorpions in BAOR, and we was classified as covering force regiments, i.e. we would go right out to the front and do the cover for 1BR Corps, the whole of the corps. Scimitar came out to do what they call a close recce position, which was medium recce, smaller gun, doing recce and getting out. It tallied up later in life when the Striker, which is the swing fire guided missile vehicle, came into production and into issue. They worked side by side. The Scimitars did the cover, the flank cover for the Strikers while they was engaging targets to the front. Right on the front of the Scimitar, as an interesting point, you can see another chieftain being fitted to the front of it. That was ideal for Scimitar because it was a low pressure firing gun. We tried fitting that to the front of the Scorpion before we deployed to Gull. Bearing in mind the gun, when you look at it on that one over there, it sticks into the hull. First round what we fired blew the bin off about 100 metres down the range, so that was a no-no in the future. This doesn't happen to those, so that was a funny incident what happened there. Spoke about the Striker, which is this vehicle over here. You can see straight away the hull shape is totally different. It's more boxy because of its role. It has 5 swing fire missiles and a lift up box at the back, and it carries all 5 spare missiles inside. That's the second generation anti-tank guided missile what the British Army had. The first one was Vigilant. Swing fire was a good missile. They would fire up to over 4,000 kilometres with it on a guided wire, and the hit rate was good on it. The running system, 5 wheels again, exactly the same as the others. It was exactly the same petrol engine or diesel engine if they got, begging your pardon, these didn't get converted to diesel engines because it was taken out of service. So these ran on the Jaguar 4.2 J60 engine. The J60 was a modified version of the civilian J60, but because it was being fitted into a military vehicle, it had to be basically toughened up. It was de-restricted as well, because if you left it at its full capacity, it would ruin the engine sooner than what the military wanted, so it was de-restricted on speed. Which, as a matter of fact, it was a phenomenally fast vehicle. It could touch 50-55 miles an hour on the road. And on cross country, if you've got a flat surface, if you could follow that, you was a better man than Gunga Din. On the turret, we've got 2 obvious places to look at. One on the right hand side with a spotlight and a big sight. That's the commander's sight on there. He'll pick up an identified target. The one to the left of that, as we're looking at it, what's got the shutter covered over it, that's the controller's sight. Now, he will, basically the system on that, he will identify a target, the controller will lay onto it, he will arm the missile, he will fire the missile comes over into his view, he will then press another button to take control of the missile, because when it's launched there's no control over it. As soon as it comes into his sight, presses to take control, and he will then guide it onto target with a thumb controller. Hopefully we get a first round hit. There's also a system where, with it being wire guided, once that missile's hit, the wire comes down, it cuts itself so that you're not strung up with wire all over the vehicle. Driver's hatch operates slightly different. It pops forward, whereas on the Scimitar and the Scorpion, they swung out to the right. If you have a look around the back of the vehicle now, you can see the access door here, and it is only a tiny door because this is where they load the spare ammunition, the spare missiles. And I don't know. Get it open there. There you go. And if you have a look inside there, you can see here, there, 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 and there'll be another one over there. That's where the spare 5 missiles are stowed. Talking to lads who use these in the Gulf, they actually said that the spare space was stacked with missiles. They put extra missiles in to stop having to be resupplied as often. The one pitfall on that is that, if you can imagine now, they've got 5 plus whatever else in that. If there's a strike on this vehicle, there's no way that it would survive. But needs must. And with it being a fast-paced advance through Iraq into Kuwait, they needed it because we couldn't afford to stop resupplying all the time. So the more equipment we could carry, the faster and further we could go. So that there is the Striker. But at the back, you can see the back of the launch bins. When they lift it up, the doors shoot down, because this is where the propulsion system comes over, and the swing fires is what they call a solid state rocket system, which is basically, I cannot remember what the composition of it is, but it is a solid fuel which just burns just like a normal space rocket, and that's how it's fired. As we said, 4,000 metres, which is a good range, which is more than what the Scorpions can fire, more than what the Scimitars can fire, and guaranteed more than what the tanks can fire as well, and hit the targets. So that was the best first line of defence. The further away you can strike the enemy before you get onto them, before they get onto you, the better. And that's what this vehicle was used for. Okay, the one we're just going to have a look at now is called the Sultan. Remember what I said, that all the CVR series started with the letter S? This is the Sultan, and each name gives you an indication of what that vehicle's job was. The Scorpion, because it's got a sting in its tail with a 76mm gun. The Scimitar, because it's light and fast and cutthroat. Now we've got the Sultan. Sultan, command, the head bonds. This is what this is, the Sultan command vehicle. If we have a look down here, you can see there's a massive change between Scorpion, Scimitar and Striker. This is a much bigger vehicle. And there you can see it, well big. Again, it's the same running system, it's the same engine, the same gearbox, the same everything. Except this is bigger because it's a command vehicle, because it needs the officers, the intelligence people in the back to do the planning. It's fitted with at least 4 radio sets and a map board, so that the commanding officers can do and control the battle from there. And if we have a look in the back, you can see here it's an extended penthouse which allows you more room in it. Instead of just being sat there, you can have people outside passing information, doing whatever they want. The penthouse is covered with a back flap, which is a blackout flap, so that you can have lights on the inside. It's a double skin matte flap, which you can open the outside, get in, close it, open the inside, you can get in without any light getting out. If you have a look at the top, you can see the 3 masts, the radio masts. This is to give the radio transmissions extra distance. The farther you can get it back to a base, that's what it's for. They're extendable masts. They're not easy to put up in situations like this. Here you can see the inside of the penthouse and the back of the Sultan's door. If you notice this difference between that and the Striker's door, that's just for the ammunition on the Striker. This is to allow people in and out. Hang on, just let me peg this up. Okay, now in the back of the Sultan you can see the operating table and the mat board. The seats where the operators sit, the chair in the middle is the commander's seat, and we've got stowage boxes all over the show. The radio sets normally sit on that side and round the bottom. There's a table at the front where that map is there. That's the radio operator's seat position. Now the one peculiar thing about this mat board is when they first introduced them, believe it or not, it's a rolling mat board. And if you know up here, we've got a roller, and there's one down the bottom here, and there's the winding handle for it. Now this was to facilitate, instead of having to change the maps one at a time, you could have a string of maps put together and just roll them round to each section you want. The thing about this is that only gives you north to south movement on the map. Now bear in mind, deployed in Germany on Europe, we would be fighting a war east to west, so it's going the wrong way. And I don't know if the rumour's true, but somebody turned around to me, I've heard that this was designed for the Belgians, not for the British. But there you can see, you know, north to south, not good enough for us. So it ended up having to change maps manually at the end of the day. Extra stowage under there, stowage down there. Some of them used to carry generators, petrol generators on top, especially for the HF frequency radio sets, which did need a lot of power. The back door, the good old British boiling vessel. Everybody takes the mickey out of us for having a boiling vessel, saying, have you got your kettle on? Well, that is the most brilliant piece of kit you can have on a vehicle, because it allows you to eat, drink and cook while you're still in the vehicle closed down. The benefit is that the water what you're boiling does give you a cup of tea, so it's brilliant. Other than BV, cook your rations, other than getting out and using the old petrol cooker, which takes a bit of setting up. That is generally the Sultan command vehicle. What we can do now is go have a look at two more vehicles. There's one vehicle in the series which we've not got here, and that looks exactly the same as the Sultan, and that one is the Samaritan. And guess what the Samaritan is? It's the ambulance version, but it's exactly the same hull as this, except it's fitted out with stretchers. But we've not got one here, so but just imagine that, stretchers instead of the mat board and table, and away you go. Okay, we'll take a walk over the other side now, and I'll show you the other two vehicles in the series. Okay, behind me now, if you look, you'll see three vehicles which look nearly identical. We've already discussed one of them, which is the one of them to my left, what's got the swing fire missile out of it. That's another Striker. But if you have a look at the next two, they both look familiar and similar. However, the two of them have got totally different roles. One of the last ones to come into the series of the CVRTs was the one in the middle. Now, with every vehicle and with every car, if you have a breakdown, you need somebody to recover you. That's the Samson, the recovery vehicle. Again, the letter S, Samson, tells you that it's strong. It needs to. Now, if we have a look at this, you can see the major differences. With this, it comes with a purpose-built cage on top, because it does need to carry a lot of equipment, this. On the left right hand side here, we've got a basket again, purpose built for it, for its equipment. We've got a block which aids with the recovery of vehicles. We've got a spade for it digging in. Round the back you can see it's fitted for the Remy lads. We've got a vise for him to work with. We've got the legs for the spade which drop down and enable it to dig in when it's winching something out of the bog or something. It drops down, you put the blades on. You can see the winching wheel up there which feeds the cable inside, because I don't know whether we can open this one. Let's have a look. Yeah. There we go. There's the winch motor on the right hand side. It's a bit of a junk mess at the moment because there's a few bits and pieces thrown in to get them out of storage, but that's the winch motor for it. This is normally crewed again by 3 crewmen, a driver, commander, which is normally a full corporal, and a craftsman. They've all got different trades. You'll have one of them who's a vehicle mechanic, you'll have one of them who's an electrician, and you'll have one of them who is possibly a gun fitter, so that all three branches of the vehicle are covered, which they're doing. Automotive, weapons and electrics, which is it. As we said, the Samson. This one, 00GM81, was actually our vehicle in Wreckage Troop 420 during the Gulf. Well, you can see there's two vehicles, what this collection's got, which belong to one regiment. That's the Samson. Apart from those bits and pieces, there's no difference between the running gear, the engines, gearboxes. It's all one series of vehicles. The last one which was introduced in the series is the one there. That's called the Spartan. The Spartan, again with the S, Spartan Fighters, Warriors. That was the infantry carrying vehicle. Not as good as the one it was replacing, which was the 432, because you can tell the size is smaller. But not only was it used for the infantry in certain roles, not generally, because they moved on to Warrior, which was better. This would be used by units like the artillery as a support vehicle, the Royal Engineers as a command vehicle for their Royal Engineer recce sections, which would be attached to a Scorpion squadron or whatever. But that's it. The series, going from start to finish, consisted of the Scorpion, the Scimitar, the Striker, the Sultan, the Samson, the Spartan and the Samaritan. 7 vehicles in one series. Cracking idea to do it, because it saved a lot of maintenance or different parts, all running gear, everything the same. That's the CVRT series.